Hello, everybody. We are now going to do lecture 6. And once again, we're going to try to make these bite-sized and fast so that it makes it a little easier since you guys are having to compress a 16-week semester down into an 8-week semester. That means you, unfortunately, would be getting 4 lectures a week because of the way that we structures down. So that is the reason why there's so many, because we actually have to take the classes and scale them down to match what we do in 16 weeks. And I got those folks twice a week. So for every 2 weeks, you get 4 lectures because they're meeting twice a week. So let's do the share screen again. Let's get to PowerPoint 6, which is going to be the marketing environment. So the marketing environment, here's a few terms that you'll want to know as we progress through this. The marketing environment, the immediate environment, also called the micro environment, for those of you who have had economics, that may kind of ring a bell a little bit. And then the external environment, which is the macro environment. So here's the complete marketing environment. Of course, I like kind of visuals. And for my visual learners out there, this will make a little bit of sense as we kind of look through this marketing. And then we see all these parts and pieces and how they are playing together. But what is our immediate environment? Well, our immediate environment is these things like suppliers, our intermediaries, our employees, our shareholders, customers, and competitors. That is in our immediate frame of mind. Those are the things that we are directly looking at from a day-to-day standpoint. Okay, so I just went through those. We won't list them again. Intermediaries, what are these? Well, they help get the products to the customers, right? There are different types of them. It can be retailers, brokers, and agents and dealers, a lot of different types that can help from the point of manufacture all the way to the end point of getting it to the customer. Sometimes there can be conflicts between these. So we want to make sure that these intermediaries and these suppliers and vendors are great representatives of the company and a good fit for how we want to do business. Suppliers, they directly influence a company, right? If they increase a price, we've got to increase a price. That is the reason why this works. The marketer also must make sure that we maintain a specific quality level. So, and that's we're getting those inputs, a lot of times those raw materials from our suppliers. Okay, our employees, we know what they are. They control everything about our business, right? There are salespeople, there are HR people, there are marketing people, finance and accounting and IT, and all the different areas in between. A lot of times the marketing folks are just responsible for the product itself. Shareholders, these are investors. These are people, as we like to call them, with skin in the game. They have a vested interest in making sure that we're successful, and not that we make money, but that we're profitable. That's the more important component of this. Our competitors are people that are doing a similar product or services, but they can also kind of help keep us in our lane, right? They help us figure out we need to innovate faster. We need to do better on our pricing. We actually are too low of a price. Competitors help us shape our overall strategy. Our customers, we know who our customers are, right? If the 4 Ps are the 4 wheels of a car we're building, the customers, they are the engine. They are the main focus of our company, because without them, we are not selling anything, and we're certainly not making any money. What is the external environment? Well, that's that ring that went all the way around the very end. And that's our economic, political, social, technological, legal, and environmental, the things that we don't necessarily directly control, that are not in our absolute sphere of influence. We've relisted these again. Our external environment, though, we know this as PESTEL: political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. We know it by that acronym, and that will kind of help you keep that in mind. And you will see PESTEL over and over again in your business courses. This will not be a new one. Here's you know how I feel about my pretty pictures in my graphics. This is a great way of kind of looking at it visually, unless you are and if that's the kind of learner you are. Economic, this is going to be kind of the GDP of a country. This is the employment rate, exchange rates, things like that. All of those things that you think about from an economic standpoint, more macroeconomic standpoint, if you will. Political, this is, this is the political stability. We know that people can be affected when there are wars or different things that are occurring in different countries. We are seeing that as well on a global scale. Social is going to be kind of the elements of our culture, our religion and faith, our generational differences, and even demographic type things, marital status, age, gender, race, all those sort of things, and how they play into this piece as well. Technological, as we move in from things like 3 to 4G to 5G, things advance and have opportunities. As we get different types of iPhones, we see different levels of technology, and companies have to keep up. There's different programming languages that come out, different ways that we can increase speeds and increase efficiency, and technology is the core of that. Legal, we can't just do whatever we want. We have employment laws, we have tax laws, we have pricing laws, we have health and safety laws, we have product protection laws. There are laws aplenty. So no matter where you're at, no matter what department you're in, you're going to see plenty of laws that are protecting consumers predominantly, but they're also protecting other interests as well. So here are some pieces of United States customer sentiment, and we can see that it took a dip. But we had a pandemic, so people really were untrustworthy. They were very unsure about themselves. And when we see the drop in consumer sentiment, then we also see ourselves really kind of figuring out if we're going to go into a recession, what's going to happen here. And so we see this is a very strong precursor of those economic types of things. The environmental, the natural, these are raw materials, right? Natural disasters, there can be hurricanes and floods and tornadoes, climate change, and all of these sort of things that can affect a company that are definitely outside of our control. So environmental scanning, this is the process of how we gather and interpret data from all these external environments, that big gray ring, so that we can try to figure out what sort of possible opportunities or threats that we can have off of them. So if you were somebody who was paying close attention to China in late 2019, then you would have realized that, man, this COVID-19 thing could turn into legitimately a global pandemic, and it did. And a lot of people did make a lot of money because they had that foresight to understand that. What environmental scanning? We need to understand the patterns and the trends and predict and analyze and strategize off of what we're determining and uncovering there. All right, information sources. How do we get all this information? Well, we can get it from our employees or our customers. We can get it from our consumer insight and research. We're going to talk about marketing research in a few lectures, but you can get things from there. Census data, things that, again, will determine there's different types of data, primary data that we generate, secondary data like census data that we're getting from someone else, government reports, and all of that. It really depends on how much money and how much time we have to spend to get that information. So what about our ethics and social responsibility? This is key for all businesses. Ethics. When we think of marketing, sometimes we don't think of ethics, but ethical marketing is really key, and we must always keep this in mind. Ethics is a set of moral principles or values that guide us. So that's what we think about when we think of ethics. Norms and values. Norms are these established kind of standards of conduct that we expect in a society. Values are the collective, what a community might find desirable and morally proper, right? So we've got this norms of things that we expect, and how we expect people to act and what we expect people to do. We expect people to be good, upstanding citizens. But even further than that, as you go into respective communities, that may be a religious community, that may be a geographic community, then you'll see those either tightened up or even loosened a little bit, depending on what their values are. There's a lot of different issues, ethical issues in marketing. A lot of people don't realize this. Bribery is a big one, fairness, honesty. And some of these things happen in the context of international marketing, some of them local. Pricing, we talked about pricing laws a couple of minutes ago. We'll get into that further later on in the course. Advertising, a lot of times people consider that advertising is manipulative. And then a manipulation of data itself is also a problem in an ethical marketing situation. Brand management. What is the product or brand imagery? So a lot of these we're touching on now, but we get into a little bit deeper later on. That the brand management is how do we manage how people perceive our company, that product and that image and all those elements that make up our brand. So corporate social responsibility. You will hear about this time and time again. Corporate social responsibility is the ethical behavior of a company towards society. It means you have to take your responsibility, not just toward the stakeholders and people with skin in the game or your shareholders, but you need to act responsibly toward everyone. And that is, and we've seen a lot of companies that kind of get into a jam on some of this. Product liability. Some of you may or may not remember when McDonald's was sued because a cup of coffee was spilt on a customer in a drive-through and it gave her third-degree burns. She actually won because it was proven that it was dangerous. Coffee does not need to be that hot in order to satisfy consumer needs and wants. It's kind of an interesting thing. Privacy. Do not call. Can spam. These are all laws that govern marketers. So we have these sort of things. You can't just do unsolicited communication and email and calling to customers and potential customers. We need to be able to understand as ethical marketers how we're going to keep that customer information secure. So there's a number of different ways that we do that. We need to restrict the access to sensitive data. We have to have the right protocols and IT processes in place. We need to be secure with our physical type of assets, and not all the data is going to be stored digitally. The Fair Information Practice Act, okay, the FTC. The FTC is kind of interesting because they will govern things like advertising and pricing and such. And we got the FCC, which is doing things that is making sure that, for example, if someone accidentally drops the F-bomb on television, that's an FCC. So there's a couple of different ways to look at this. So consider the two different types of entities that are involved in that protection. Fraud. The FTC, they have they're overseeing fraud where it's representation, omission of key facts that mislead consumers. So they will hop in and say, nope, 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 you shouldn't have been able to say that. That is misleading or manipulating a consumer into acting or believing something. Trust. The goal of marketing is not to deceive. It's to build trust. It's to build value. You won't keep a customer very long if you do not build trust with your customers. All right, deception. Is the product designed and manufactured, or is, we need to understand, are we being honest with the customer? Is there a chance that a customer could be hurt? Is there a customer that that they could consume something that might harm them, that may be unhealthy for them? These are all deception in product, and there are safeguards against those. The FTC regards these things very importantly, and they make sure that companies disclose these sort of things. Is there deception in price? Is it a fair representation? And again, we have a couple of the lectures on price. I won't dig too deep here, but just know that those are definitely governed. Deception in promotion. We don't just allow people to go out there and say anything they want to about their products. You can't say that something is all natural or organic. If it is not, it has to meet very specific criteria to be able to be called organic or all natural. In the beginning, that wasn't the case. And then of course that too was regulated. Deception of place. Can we do this at the right place at the right time? And again, there's types of things that we have to think through this, but do our wholesalers and retailers, are they going to perform as delivered? So those are some of the things that we have to think through. What are some of the B2B ethics, the business to business ethics? We always talk about business to consumer ethics because they're one that we think of as consumers, but there's B2B. Businesses and businesses interact all day, every day. And so we have to kind of think of what are some of their challenges, personal sales relationships, making sure that we can negotiate and we have a fair representation and pricing and contracts, and that our communication and all that is taking place in a way that safeguards both party from fraud, manipulation, etc. Then, of course, policies that companies make. These are the types of things that we do so that we can protect not only our employees, but how our employees act with other people. So you're protecting yourself and you're protecting your employees with different policies on things that they consider ethical, moral, and the ways that they feel like their employees should act. Can a company accept gifts from their vendors? Some companies will allow you to. Some companies will allow you to only if it goes into a pool that they then, raffle off for charity. Some companies are an absolute no. Some companies it's under $20. It's varied, and that's why we have company policies that exist, and they outline that. Business gifts. Sometimes these can be seen as somewhat unethical, depending on what they are. It may not be unethical to take someone to lunch, but it may be unethical to purchase them a car. So there's varying degrees of ethics, and companies typically have a guideline on where they draw the line and what their policy is on accepting gifts. All right, standards for business conducts. Companies absolutely require their employees to follow the law, but they create other additional layers of expectations for behaviors. We talked about accepting gifts. We talked about travel, all of these sort of things, how they're going to handle customer data, how they're going to make judgment calls, what the hierarchy levels are, reporting and enforcement, and all these sort of things are standards of business conduct that a company will create in order to maintain a sense of ethics and be within a legal lines as well. Judgment calls. Is it legal? Is it not legal? If it's not legal, certainly don't do it. Is it ethical? If it feels wrong, it probably is. That's the standard mode of thought that we work through in most of the companies that I've worked for or consulted for. Social responsibility. This, when we think about this in terms of how it kind of integrates into a marketing strategy, we have to consider a couple of things. We don't want to be disingenuous. We want to make sure that we're socially and responsible in our communities. We're not doing it just because there's an expectation to do it. We need to be genuine about the types of social responsibility steps we're taking, because that will reflect with our customers and they will appreciate that. If we're not genuine and we're doing it for the sake of being able to promote it, then our customers are going to see through that. Sustainable products. Obviously, this is becoming more and more a trend. Most companies are having to invest in either sustainable packaging, sustainable products, recycling on some level. Customers want to know how a company is giving back and how they're being responsible with the products that they're developing and they're selling. So that is another thing to consider in marketing. Ethics for marketing employees. We need to consider demonstrate respect for the target customer. You need to, prepare the sales team to act effectively and very ethically, because things can get a little bit sideways in negotiation sometimes. Providing fair value, providing fair communication and fair representation, and be competitive but not be cutthroat. Be truthful always. These are things to consider for a marketing employee in terms of being ethicals. And ethics makes sense. The most ethical companies in the world outperform their peers in the stock market. So not only is it something that we want for ourselves, we want to be moral and we want to be ethical, but in the end, we will actually do better than other companies that have some unethical practices. So I hope this has caught you up on lecture 6. I appreciate your time and patience, and I'll see you in the next lecture.